All right, so when you first open up a drawing in AutoCAD, you're at the Learn and the Create screen. And so to start a drawing, you just pick on Start Drawing, like this guy right here. When you pick on that, it takes you into a drawing session in AutoCAD. Now, right down here along the lower left-hand corner, lower right-hand corner of your screen, right here, you have the status bar. And the status bar has some important things on it. You see this guy right here, this is called the grid, and you can see there's a grid on this, but if I click on the grid with my left button, it turns the grid off. So when something is not blue, it's off, and when it's blue, it's on. All right, so I've turned the grid off, and then what you do is you look over here at your user coordinate system and see where that point where the X and the Y come together. That is 0, 0. That's the coordinate for that guy right there. So like I was showing you guys the other day, I think if we start a line and we say 2, 2 and press enter, then AutoCAD starts measuring at that corner and goes over 2 and goes up 2 and starts drawing at that point. Now, one of the things that when you drew the Dino Pig, which was the exercise you're supposed to draw, you notice that as you got over here, it snapped to horizontal, or if you move straight up, it snaps to vertical. That is because you have this on right here. This is polar tracking. So you have to have that on if you want to get that purely vertical. Another thing that will give you the purely vertical is the one next to it, which is called ortho. The problem with ortho is when you're in ortho, you can only go horizontal or vertical. Where you're in polar tracking, the one next to it, you can go horizontal, but you can also get angles in between up until it snaps to there. So I prefer to draw with polar tracking on, unless I'm absolutely sure I'm making a drawing where everything needs to be perfectly horizontal and perfectly vertical. You can turn your ortho on, which is right here. And if you put your mouse on there and you don't pick, you see it says ortho mode, and then in parentheses it says F8. That means you can press your F8 key on your keyboard and turn on ortho. If you press F8 again, it turns it off. Okay, and your polar tracking is F10, the one next to it. You can turn off and on with F10, but they can't be both on at the same time. All right, so one of them, as soon as you pick on one, it turns the other guy off. Okay. Other thing I want to point out is this guy right here, which is dynamic input. When you start a line, you see where next to my cursor it says specify the first point. That's because I have dynamic input on. It's going to ask me some questions and it's going to give me some information. So if I type in 2, 2 and press enter, you see all the information that's around my cursor, that blue box that's telling me the distance of the line, and then also it says specify next point, and next to that it says 45 degrees. The only reason I'm seeing that is because this dynamic mode is on. If I turn it off, look, I lose most of that stuff. Now I might get something up here and when I get right there, but most of that stuff has been turned off. So if you're ever drawing and you don't see all that extra information, which is really good to have, make sure that you have this guy turned on. Dynamic mode is turned on. Now, if you don't see dynamic mode, if you don't see that icon right there, you can come right over here to these 3 parallel lines and pick on that, and you would go up here and you would find dynamic input and pick on it and turn it on, and that would put it in. So any of these that you're not seeing, that's how you could turn those on. So I'm going to go quickly then to Blackboard and show you something. When you go to Blackboard and you click on Module 1, which is the module you guys were supposed to be working on, where you drew the Dino Pig, if you go right up here, there's some videos that are really important, and one of them talks about AutoCAD's interface, workspaces, the status bar, and dynamic input. So there's some short videos in here that if you didn't watch before you went and drew this guy, these are worth watching now, these 7 videos. because they're going to explain a whole lot about the interface of AutoCAD and about what the status bar is and all that. So I'm going to click back on AutoCAD. So again, this guy right down here, this is your status bar. Now, another thing that you're going to want to do, and that those videos lead you through, is to look up here on the upper left and pick on that down arrow and come right here and pick Show Menu Bar. When you pick Show Menu Bar, it adds an extra set of tools right up here that are really important tools. So you do want to turn on Show Menu Bar. So you just pick on that down arrow and pick Show Menu Bar. Mine says Hide Menu Bar because I have it on right now. The other thing you probably ought to turn on, and this is in one of those videos, is you pick on this down arrow right here and you pick on Workspace. And when you do that, it's going to turn on an extra little bit of information right up here that tells you what your workspace is. And so right now we're working in the drafting and animation workspace. If you pick on the down arrow, you have some other workspaces up here that you don't want to get into right now, the 3D basics and 3D modeling, because it'll make everything look weird to you. And we'll get into that later, but for right now you want to just stay in drafting and annotation. You can also find your workspace on the status bar right down here where that gear is. If you pick on the gear, you can see your workspaces over here. And again, we're in drafting and annotation. If you wanted to save a custom workspace, you could actually pick on that down arrow right there and pick Save the Current Workspace As, and then you could give it a name. And so let's say that you open some toolbars or things that you want to keep open all the time. You could make a custom workspace and you can have some of those toolbars open. Now, since I'm talking about toolbars, I'll show you about toolbars. That menu that I opened by selecting Show Menu Bar, this guy right here, if you go up to Tools and you come down a little bit to where it says Toolbars, you don't have to pick on it. Just move your cursor down there and then move over to, there's a little arrow pointing out, and then move over to AutoCAD. I still haven't picked, but I've just moved my way down from Tools to Toolbars to AutoCAD. And then I move over here. These are all of the AutoCAD's toolbars I could have open, and they're in alphabetical order. So let's say I want to open the Draw toolbar. I'm going to pick on it. It opened. This is the Draw toolbar. There's the line command. There's the circle command. There's the rectangle command. And while all of those are up here, by opening that toolbar and then dragging over here to the right, you have access to all of those tools, and it's actually quicker than having to come up here and pick on these ones that aren't visible. So this is your Draw panel right here. This is the Modify panel where you have the move, rotate, trim, and all that kind of stuff. You could come up to Tools, go to Toolbars, go to AutoCAD, and come down here to your Modify tools. And it will put them over here on the right side. So I'm going to pick right at the top and hold down with my left button and drag all those modified tools right over here and put them next to there. And your book actually shows a setup like that. And whether you want to use those tools or not, that's up to you. But we do have a video that kind of shows those things. And so usually I show my classes to go ahead and open up those toolbars and put them over on the left-hand side. We call that docking when we put them on the left side. So if you look on page, like page 121 in your textbook, you can see all of the status bar icons we would like to have turned on. And so remember, to turn on your status bar tools, just come right over here and click on the 3 parallel lines. And then anything you check in this list is going to show up as an icon down here. Right? So that's what we're showing you there. And then we talk about drawing lines and so on like that. But at the top of page 122, you can see kind of a detail of the status bar. So it tells you where your grid icon is and your snap icon and all that kind of stuff is. So you'll need to get kind of familiar with these tools down here. And what we do in the videos is we generally will direct your attention to the status bar wherever it's needed when you're working in a video. So don't worry about remembering all of this right now. We're gonna show it to you again in the videos as you go through these projects. But like I said, here's my modify toolbar is open right now. So if I need to erase, if I need to do a move or a rotate or anything like that. Now, I had a couple of things I want to show you about. One of the things is something called units. And if you go up here to where it says format, or if you just type the word units and press enter, pick on format and come down to units. And you pick on that, and it opens up this dialog box. For most mechanical drawings, you're just going to keep your units in decimal units. And that allows you to type like 3.125, and AutoCAD will know what you're talking about. Now, under precision down here, you can see that there's a decimal point, and then it goes to 4 zeros. If you pick on the down arrow, you can actually change that precision if you want to. What that means for AutoCAD is that if you tried to type in a dimension to 4 decimal places, it will round it. It will round that dimension after the 3rd decimal place. So that's why that's what precision is about. Okay. So again, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to remind you how I got there. I went to format and I went to drawing units. Let me find that again right here. Okay. So you pick on units. But what if you were going to make an architectural drawing? Would you want to be in decimal units? You wouldn't. You would want to be in feet and inches. And so what you would do is pick on this down arrow right here and choose architectural units. And you can see now that my precision is at feet and fractional inches, in this case 1/16 of an inch. That's the point that it's going to start rounding if I'm doing an architectural plan like a floor plan. So when you do the 3rd drawing that's going to be assigned today, it's called the guest cottage. It's going to tell you to go in and change your drawing units to architectural units. Okay. And so just as a reminder for how that's done, you go up to format and you go to units and you look at your type of unit and pick here and pick architecture. Okay. Now the book's going to tell you to do that, and I believe the video is going to show you again about how to do that. I didn't make that video, but I'm pretty sure she shows you how to do everything that's in the book on that. All right, so the way, when I look up here and I pick on format, and that takes me to where I can see units, I want you to remember that if your menu bar is not turned on, you won't see format when you go up here. So that's why it's important in AutoCAD to go up to this down arrow right there and pick on the down arrow and select Show Menu Bar. And then I would also recommend picking Workspace as well. But you pick Show Menu Bar. When you do that, that's where you get this Format pull-down menu. This menu right here in AutoCAD used to always be open. It was a default menu. And for some reason, a few editions of AutoCAD back, they decided to turn that off and you have to go turn it on yourself. I don't know why they took that out because it's really a good thing. Okay, so right up here we call this the ribbon, and so most of your tools are on the ribbon, and then they're broken into these panels, the draw panel, modify, and so on like that. So I wanted to show you a couple of those commands. One is the rectangle command. So I'm going to pick on rectangle, and it says specify the first corner. I'm going to type 2,2 and press enter. And what it does, you can see that I'm rubber banding off of a corner that's located at 2,2. And you see the dimension readout that has the blue background on it. That is the X value, and then it wants to know a Y value. So I'm drawing a rectangle. It wants to know how large is that rectangle. So I'm going to type 4,6 and press enter. And what it does, it starts at 2, 2 and it goes over 4 and up 6 like that. Okay, so that's the rectangle command, and you're going to be using the rectangle command today in the first assignment that you do. But the video will lead you through it, so at least you'll see that. But I want to show you a couple of things about the rectangle. It's one entity. It's 4 lines, but they all act like one. And so the other day I was telling you guys, if you want to break something like a rectangle into separate parts, you need to use this command right here. It's right below erase. It's called explode. So if you select this and you pick explode, and then you come in here and you pick, you can see that it's been broken into separate lines. Now the reason why you might want to break it into separate lines is this. This command right here is called the offset command, and you'll probably use offset more than any other command. Pick on offset, and then look by your cursor and it says specify the offset distance. I'm going to type 0.5 and press enter. And then it says select the object to offset. I'm going to pick this line right here, and then I'm going to pick anywhere to the right of that line. Doesn't matter where I pick, because it's going to offset that line 0.5 inches. I could pick this line here and pick anywhere above that line, and it would offset that line 1/2 inch exactly. I could pick this line and pick anywhere. So you stay in the offset command until you press escape. Once you press escape, you're out of the offset command. All right, so that's the offset command right here. It's a really great command. You're going to use it all the time. Now I'm going to show you another great command that you're going to use all the time, and it's the trim command. So when you pick on trim, it says select the object to trim. So look at this. If I go right there and I go right there, I can trim out that corner. Or I could trim that line and I could trim this line here. For you guys who've used AutoCAD before, this is a change. It used to be that when you selected trim, you couldn't take out lines that were not crossed by something else. So I'm going to do an undo and bring that back. So it used to be when you did a trim and you wanted to get rid of a line, once you picked that line right there, you couldn't trim this line out because it didn't cross anything. It ended at those endpoints of those lines right there. But this is an improvement they've made in AutoCAD 2021. So if anybody has used a previous version of AutoCAD, the trim command got better. And I used to always teach students that the way you use the trim command is you picked trim and pressed enter. You don't have to do that anymore. So anybody that took my class last spring, all you need to do is pick trim and start trimming, and you can trim. Okay. Now the difference between trim and erase is this. If I do an erase, it erases the entire line. If I do a trim, I can erase just that line, and then I can erase that other part of the line. Pardon me. Other one, hang on here. Okay, the other one I want to show you. I think I'm going to lose my voice. Okay, the circle command. When you get in the circle command, it says specify a center point. So once you pick a center point, it prompts you and it says specify a radius, or because it'll let you do a diameter if you want to. So here's how you can switch from a radius to a diameter. If you look right down here on your command line, right now it's defaulting to radius. If you pick on diameter, you can just type 2, for example, and press enter, and it would draw a circle with a diameter of 2. But I want to show you the circle command up here. There is a down arrow below the circle command. If you pick on that, you can choose to draw a circle with a center radius or with a center diameter, or you can pick some other options that you have, but mainly for right now we'll be using center diameter or center radius. So if you know the diameter of a circle and you need to draw one, probably the best thing to do is to pick on the down arrow and pick center diameter, and it will say, where's the center of the circle? And you could like snap to right there, and then it'll just ask you, well, what's the diameter? And you can draw that guy like that. Pardon me. So circle was on my list. So we've got units, rectangle, offset, trim. We've got explode. I've shown you that one. All right, so the other one I wanted to show you is the fillet command, because you're going to use it today. And I think I may have shown you this before, but it says select the first object that you want to fillet. Well, a fillet is a rounded corner. So if I pick here and then I pick here, you would expect that to have been rounded if you're using the fillet command. But here's the problem. The first time you use the fillet command, AutoCAD doesn't know what the radius of the fillet should be. So what you want to do is come over here and pick on radius right down here at the bottom. Now you can do that, or you can type R and press enter. So I want to show you something. You see that line of words right there? Any letter that is capitalized, all you need to do is type that letter and press enter. That's an AutoCAD trick. So, but if I pick on radius, AutoCAD says specify the fillet radius. So I'm going to type 0.25 and press enter. Now it says select first object. I'm going to pick here, and I'm going to pick my second object, and it does a fillet of 0.25 on that. If I press enter, remember that AutoCAD comes back to the last command you were in. If I press enter, it'll put me back in to the fillet command. So let's find something else I can fillet. Let's say I do this line and this line right there. See how those filleted. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you guys today, because you're going to be using it in a project, is if I go up to the fillet command and I pick on the down arrow next to it, its partner command is chamfer, which is an angled corner. So if I pick on chamfer, it replaces fillet with a chamfer. If I need fillet again, I've got to pick on the down arrow and pick fillet. But when I pick on chamfer, and then I look down here on the command line, it says distance. If I pick on distance, AutoCAD says, what's your first chamfer distance? I'm going to type 0.5 and press enter. And then it says, what's your second chamfer distance? I'm going to type 0.25 and press enter. So I'm going to pick this first line, and because that's the first line, it's going to back off a ½ inch there, and then I'm going to pick the second line, and it's going to come down 0.25. So my chamfer right here, it's a ½ inch from where that corner was to there, and it's 0.25 inches from where that corner was down to there. So chamfer and fillet, help you deal with these corners that need to be rounded or beveled. All right. So we've got chamfer and fillet, and I've already talked about explode. Okay. So with those, you can just about do the projects that we're going to start doing today. So let's talk about the projects. Let me make sure I don't need to cover anything else on here. Okay, no, I don't think so. So I'm going to minimize AutoCAD for a second. So you're going to open up Blackboard and pick on Chapter 4, Module 2. And that's going to take you here. And it says that the required assignments are to draw projects 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 with AutoCAD. 4.1 begins on page 216, if you want to look at page 216. And if you look at the top of page 216, you're going to see this shape that has a bunch of holes in it, and it has some dimensions. And we're actually going to draw that using those dimensions. And you can see that some of those dimensions go to 3 decimal places and some go to 2. I don't think any of them are at 1 decimal place. All right. And so that is project 4.1. Now I'm not going to get into that, but I'm going to show you. If you look at page 221 at the bottom, that's what your drawing will look like when you're finished. at the bottom of page 221. And that's called the gasket project. And the way to draw this is either follow the directions in the book or watch the video. And I would recommend watching the video, because in the videos we're able to show you like tips and tricks and things like that it's hard to read about. As soon as you finish that, turn to page 222. And at the top of the page, you're going to see the next assignment, which is called the CAM. And the CAM looks very complicated, but it's not very complicated if you watch the video or follow the directions there. But I would recommend watching the video again for that. And I'll show you where all that is located here in just a second. And then the last assignment that you're going to do starts on page 226. On page 226, you're going to see a sketch for something called the guest cottage. And in the guest cottage is where you're going to set your units to architectural units. And on this one, you're actually going to make layers. So we haven't talked about that yet, but you're going to be led through making layers in the video. It's going to show you how to make these layers. But when you look at the sketch on page 226, you can see the little house that you're drawing the floor plan for. You're not going to be drawing the bathtub or the toilet or any of that other stuff. You're just going to be drawing the basic shape and the walls of the house. And so if you turn to page 228, you can see how you're led through this project. And it starts by drawing a rectangle that's 18 feet, 15 feet, and then using the offset command to offset that 4 inches to the inside, because the walls are 4 inches thick. Okay. Then you're going to explode both of those rectangles, and you're going to use the offset and trim command. As you can see on page 228, near the bottom of the page, you're going to offset lines. And then you're going to offset them 4 inches for the wall thickness. Then you're going to trim those out to start making the bathroom and the closet. Okay, so you're going to get really good at using offset and trim, and you need to be good at that. And so the videos, again, I would watch the video when you do this. And if you keep turning the pages, let's see, by the time you get to page 233. At the bottom of page 233, you can see what you're going to draw. So you're going to have the exterior and the interior walls. You're going to have some doors, and you're going to have some windows. And the video is going to show you how to do those. All right. And you can, that's all you have to do. So the project actually ends on 234. So don't worry about anything on 235. That's for next week. But so you're going to draw the gasket, and you're going to draw the cam, and those go really fast if you watch the video. And then you're going to draw the guest cottage floor plan. And I would like for you to have those done by next Monday. And so if we were in class, those would just take a couple of class sessions to do, and class sessions are normally 2.5 hours long. So you're looking at probably, depending on how fast you are, most people can draw the gasket and the cam in an hour or so. And then the guest cottage, if you're fairly fast, you could probably do that in a couple of hours, I imagine. But I think you ought to put aside 3 or 4 hours this weekend or between now and Monday to get these done. All right. Now, I want to show you, you're still seeing my screen, so I want to show you what you're going to do in Blackboard. So you've clicked on Module 2, which is drawing and editing with AutoCAD. And what it talks about there is it sends you, it has a link to the Draw Commands playlist in YouTube. So this has all your draw commands. So if you're having trouble figuring out how rectangle works, you can click on this and you can go play the video for the rectangle command. Under Modify Commands, if you're having trouble figuring out how to offset or trim, you can click on that and go play the offset or trim videos. They're like 2 or 3 minutes long. They'll show you how to use those commands. These videos here show you how to make layers and even how to make text and some stuff like that. Then it talks about the CAD assignments, which are the gasket, the cam, and the guest cottage. Each assignment is in an assignment folder. So there are 3 folders here. You're going to click on the GeoQuick gasket folder first. And when you click on that, it has kind of a step-by-step. It says, in the textbook, turn to the gasket project, or you can click on this PDF right here. That will show you all your dimensions and everything for the gasket project. But here's something that everybody needs to pay attention to. We've never done this before. You're going to open the Imperial Prototype drawing. So this is a prototype, is a drawing that you open up and then you save it with a new name and then you draw on that. So if we click on that right there, it should take you to something like this that says, what should you do with this file? And you want to open it with AutoCAD. If it doesn't open with AutoCAD, then just download it and save it and then go to File, Open, and open it with AutoCAD. But you're going to open this thing called the Imperial Prototype. So I'm going to pick Open. And it's opening AutoCAD for me. Just a second, I'll bring that over so you can see it. Okay, it's still opening on my other window, so just give me a second. So this is what the Imperial Prototype is going to look like when you open it. You are going to draw your projects right inside here. You can ignore this guy right here. I don't know why it even says that on there. But you're going to be drawing your gasket and your cam are both going to be drawn on the same sheet. They're going to be right in here. So as soon as you finish the gasket, you'll follow the directions that will tell you to draw the cam right up there. Both of those will be on the same sheet. Now you can see I have my grid on. That's right down here on the status bar. I would pick on that and just turn the grid off probably. But if you look at the top of the page, it says Imperial Prototype. What you want to do once you open that, because the prototype, you don't have the rights to make changes to the prototype. You have to save this into your home folder so you can edit it. So what you want to do is go over here to the red A, the scarlet letter, and you're going to pick on that and pick Save As. And when you pick Save As, what you want to do is go to your Google file stream. This is if you've already set up Google File Stream, pick on My Drive, and then what we recommended that you do is make a folder that has your student ID number, maybe your name, and click on that. And inside this folder, I would right click and make a new folder, and I would name it DFTG 1405. And then I would double click on that and right click, and I would make a new folder, and I would name it Daily Work. And then I would move out of there and right click again, go to New, and make a folder named Capstone Project. And so then I would double click right here. And so here's your file name. It's called Imperial Prototype, and it's going to go into your Daily Work folder. And I would name it GeoQuick. And that's what the book tells you to do, and that's what I think the video is going to show you how to do that. And then you just pick Save. All right. Now, if you look right up here, you can see the path, and it will tell you right up here at the very top that it's the GeoQuick drawing. All right. So I'm going to go back over here and just show you what you need to do as far as creating files. So in Blackboard, there's a link on the left-hand side that talks about managing your files. And what it tells you to do is to connect a Google Drive file stream. All right. So once you do that, you're going to see this, and you pick on that. And when you do that, you're going to see something called My Drive. When you pick on My Drive, you need to make a new folder. So you'll just right click. See, I have a bunch of folders there. You won't see a bunch of folders. You're going to right click and pick New and pick on Folder. And what I would do is type in your ID number for ACC right there, and then put your name next to it. All right. So once you make that folder, double click on it, and then make a new folder there. Go right click, New Folder, and make a folder named DFTG1405. Then double click on that and make two new folders in there, one called Capstone and one called Daily Work. And for the next several weeks, everything we save is going to be in the Daily Work folder. Okay, so that's the file management. Now, if you don't want to save out on the Google Drive file stream, you could create a folder on your home drive and just save stuff in the home drive. The advantage, though, of saving at the Google file stream to My Drive and doing all that stuff right there is at the end of the semester, you can share this folder right here, the Daily Work folder. Let me back up one. Go to here. Actually, you can go to that folder. You could share this folder right here with our tech support team, and what they will do is copy it onto our server at the campus, and that way we can back up all of your work at the end of the semester. So that's why we recommend using Google File Stream. And because later, if you're here in our department for a year or two and you want to be able to get to all your work, we can back up all your work for you. Okay. All right. So that was a lot for one day. So remember, what I was getting at there was this. Open the prototype for the GeoQuick. You're going to double click on Imperial Prototype, open it with AutoCAD, and then do a File, Save As, save it as GeoQuick. It tells you right here to save that as GeoQuick. And then you're ready to start drawing it. And that's where you can open this video on drawing the gasket. You can watch the video. So if you have two monitors, what I recommend is having the video on one monitor and having AutoCAD on the other as you draw this project. So I'm going to back up one step. So that's what you're going to find in this assignment folder for the GeoQuick gasket. When you click on GeoQuick Cam, you don't have to do a bunch of extra stuff because, like I said, you're going to draw that on in the same drawing that you already drew the gasket. So you can go straight to the video if you just want to watch the video on that one. And then I'm going to back up here. And in project number 3, the guest cottage, you're going to pick on guest cottage. And we have a PDF showing you all the steps. But you're going to open the cottage prototype. And when you open the prototype, you want to do a save as and put it in your folder, the daily work folder, and call it guest cottage. And then you'll start drawing that guy. Now, here's the thing. When you start drawing the guest cottage, we have broken the videos into 5 parts. All right, so each video is not too long that way. And the first one just tells you how to set up the drawing and all that sort of stuff. It says the project will be submitted later, so do not print this project at this time because we're going to work on it some more later. Okay. So that's the assignment. Does that sound good? Good. Fortunately, I can see one of you, and I can tell if this is get through. Actually, I can see 2 of you. All right. So if you have any questions, Feel free to stick around and ask questions. You can always email me if you have questions. I'll be on here for 15 more minutes or so. And so otherwise you can leave and get to work on this. But these projects should be done. These 3 projects should be done by next Monday at 11 o'clock. Okay? Because we have new assignments that will begin on Monday. So focus on these 3 assignments this weekend. And let me know if you have any questions at all, and I'll help you out. Okay? All right. If you're signing off, I'll see you later. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you on Monday. If I don't see you before that, if you have a question you want to send me. But like I said, I'll stick around for about 15 more minutes on this Google Meet. Okay. Take care.